When Destiny Takes the Back Seat, a tale of prophecy and priorities. Have you ever worked for someone whose birth was foretold in prophecy? I have. And one thing I can tell you about prophesied folks, they are some stubborn bastard. It's real easy for these people to get comfortable in their ways. They grow up with this sense of inevitable destiny hanging over their heads. So they start to believe that every step they take is guided. So they move recklessly, too damn reckless for my taste, ready to step off of a ledge blindfolded, even if you're handcuffed to them by the wrists. It's like they already know that everything's going to be okay. But how would you know? I can recall being a passenger on a transport bus driven by Falcon Flint, driving directly into an aerial bombardment zone, as if those were raindrops rather than missiles over our heads. It's like they've been given a blank check of certainty, so they never feel the need to question themselves, never doubt that they're right. I don't think that you should tell people who have been prophesied about that they are involved in prophecy. It makes it very difficult to debate them. How do you defeat them in an argument? I was here before I was here, motherfucker. What do you say against that? Once someone believes they've been marked by fate itself, there's no arguing with them. Any point you try to make, they can twist it into some cosmic sign that they've already won the argument. You end up just trying to get through the day without getting caught in their delusions. In 1999, one of our armament specialists, who would eventually gain the rank of general, got a first-hand lesson on how destiny sometimes has to compete with more immediate concerns. Grayson, despite not being a philosophical nor scientific man himself, showed great interest in codastic mythologies since he was young. It all started when his parents would read him stories of the citrine prophesied warriors as a child, mystical stories of mystical weapons, some historically proven, others folklore and legend. The nation of McNamara's Five is rich in folklore, mythology, and interesting stories, one of which I will tell now. It involves Grayson Levy, the armament specialist I mentioned. His family owns United Industries, and our beloved Doyon Do'Toro Rand, son number 4 of the Rand Maxwell prophecy, though this was long before Do'Toro joined our ranks officially. One of Do'Toro's older cousins on the Maxwell side, Peyton Brooks, along with Grayson Levy, were members of the MM5 76 Port Dio Northwest Division before they joined the Javhan Dominion Holdings Corporation. They served out of the Jasper Military Hampton facility off of Warrenton Road. Peyton Brooks joined the JDH at the solicitation of his younger cousin Doyon Do'Toro Rand. He would later bring in a good friend of the Maxwells in the northeast sector of the province, Grayson Levy. The Levy family were the owners of United Industries, a reputable Northwest Province armament dealer. In the early 90s, the Maxwells invested in commercial as well as private real estate ventures in the city of Callahan in the northwest portion of Port Doe Province. It was there that Grayson Levy, along with Peyton Brooks and his brother Digits Maxwell, would meet at various Jasper social functions. Levy held high admirations for Javhan Dominion Holdings, and from day one, he carried himself with the fervor of a true believer, inspired in large part by the success of another PMC that had been making waves in Port Doe Province. This outfit was ran in part by Peyton Brooks' older brother, Digits. They called themselves the Doe Brotherhood of Gladiators. The DBGs had built themselves quite a reputation. On the streets, it was one phrase that could summarize the methodology of the way this organization moved. Straight gangster. In a popular news clip during the Rosemary campaign, one Azurite operative can be heard on the radio stating, "I can handle it," upon receiving notification of the arrival of the Doe Brotherhood of Gladiators. Later in that broadcast, he can be heard crying, "Mercy, mercy me. Can't we just all get along?" That clip was all of the rage for many Weichland through the mid-90 seconds. Tales of their greatness would reach the halls of the Capitol. Eventually, a major representative from the state of Oakland would sponsor them personally. They would battle throughout the nation under his guidance in the Superfest campaign, making them the most famous PMC in the province and cementing the DBGs in province history. and Levy saw them as proof of concept for what private military companies could achieve in our corner of the world. But he also saw opportunity, a chance for JDH to not just match their success, but surpass it. Having recently been granted permission to start up a special outfit within the corporation known as the Nobenge Unit, Grayson saw the value of street-level operatives incorporated with the backing of a proper military foundation. One family that he knew of for certain with street-level operatives were the Maxwells. He didn't know all of them. The majority of them operated out of the northeast of the province, with several scattered throughout Woodbridge, Brewster Township, Sconey, and the city of Callahan. Digits was already involved in his own PMC. Peyton Brooks was already a member of the JDH, but one street-level operative that he knew for certain that would bring credibility to the Nobenge Unit operations was Doyon Do'Toro Rand. He was both a Maxwell as well as JDH royalty. Technically, he had ownership in the company. At this point in time, Doyon Do'Toro Rand hadn't yet joined Javhan Dominion Holdings Corporation. Instead, he was running his own operation. A small but tight-knit street gang he'd founded in Littlefield Township called F.A. Mob. Do'Toro had natural leadership qualities, the kind that drew people to him and made them willing to follow him into uncertain situations. Levy recognized this quality immediately, but more than that, he saw something larger at work. Levy was well aware of numerous prophecies involving the Javhan Dominion Holdings Corporation, but more so the prophecy of the Five Dancing Sunz. He spent a lot of time with Peyton Brooks and Digits at the Curtis House, one of the private Maxwell family estates ran by Angels Maxwell Jones in the city of Callahan. He observed how the young Rand brothers enjoyed firing paintballs at each other, ducking out of bushes in camouflage when they would visit with their older half-sister, and knew that they would grow to be good soldiers. According to him, having bloodlines foretold in prophecy was great for a private military corporation. The Flint family of Genesee gave the JDH much potential, being the prophesied bloodline in the Anvil Stone prophecy. However, only 3 of the prophesied members of the Rand Maxwell family had taken up their stake with Javhan Dominion Holdings. The 2 younger brothers, despite the fact of great leadership qualities, had yet to join the organization. If they could be convinced to join the Jasper cause, it could bring the JDH to new heights. The younger sons of Doyon Pops Rand Sr. were sought after for extermination by a cult of Azurite codastic practitioners at a young age, resulting in the assassination of their mother and forcing the 5 brothers to separate in exile until the threat was eliminated. The 3 older brothers, living out their years in exile with their father, unsurprisingly grew an appreciation for military structure. The younger 2, however, despite the occasional military training session from their father, grew to appreciate civilian life a bit more, but were unable to appreciate civilian life fully until the end of their exile. In the late 82nds, Grayson Levy sympathized for them. He even empathized, but it was the prophecy of the 5 Dancing Sunz. Nonetheless, not the 3 Dancing Sunz. The conversation that would begin the persuasion of Do'Toro's interest in joining the JDH took place during a car ride down Livernois Road. Picture it, Levy behind the wheel, passionate and animated as he painted a picture of what could be. The song by Whitney Houston, currently number 2 on Billboard's Hot 100, Heartbreak Hotel. Playing on the radio in the background, Do'Toro in the passenger seat, listening, but with that particular brand of distracted attention that comes when someone's mind is elsewhere. I can recall when the DBGs first started. Levy said, remembering. They had a small contract with the 76. My family and I provided armaments for this operation. I think the operation was called Mustang Feeding, something like that. There was this young female lieutenant. Bitch was bad. Your cousin said some silly shit. Hey girl, you got a body like a MF. Can I bang bang boogie with you? She shot him down. 3 Wyclin later, this same chick was chasing him down Wildermere trying to get an autograph as they just drove away in their APC. He laughed as they passed College Liquor Store. Do'Toro remained silent for a moment before Levy continued. You got 3 older brothers in the JDH. Why haven't you signed up yet, Do'Toro? Me and Diggy decided that we're going to enjoy civilian life a bit longer before we enlist. Are you sure about that? Levy replied. I had my eye on some payroll slips about a month ago. I noticed that you were involved in a campaign with your cousin, Peyton Brooks. There was a check written out in your name. I know it was from Peyton Brooks, from his signature, the way he writes that big-ass P, B, and then scribbles Maxwell. I was just having a little fun with my cousin. That's all. Do'Toro replied, as they passed Lee Van Hawkins' restaurant on Livernois at Florence. Do'Toro, Levy said, his hands gesturing even as he navigated traffic. We got a major opportunity sitting right on our laps. The DBGs have shown what's possible, but they're just scratching the surface. Do'Toro nodded, his eyes scanning the buildings and lots they passed. He replied, though his attention seemed focused on something beyond Levy's grand vision. Your father gave me permission to set up a special unit. Nothing permanent. It's an open roster. I'm calling it Nobenge Unit. So far, I'm working with Taz, Dent, and Tall. But we can use some young street blood, like you and your boys at the F.A. Mob. If you brought your assets, your connections, your people over to JDH, we could become even more powerful. Just as famous, if not more famous than the DBGs. After a short moment of silence, Do'Toro finally spoke. If I wanted to be famous, I would go on the Gong Show. The wrong people's attention is something that I definitely am not interested in. I've been on the receiving end of the wrong people's attention, and I can tell you one thing. It was not thrilling. Levy gave Do'Toro a sarcastic, side-eyed glance as he said, I've heard your sister before talking about that little incident in the parking lot at the Mercury Theater. Sounds like to me, you handle yourself pretty well. Do'Toro smirked to himself in recollection. Oh, I handled something all right, but it definitely wasn't myself. As they both shared a laugh, Levy's voice carried the conviction of someone who could see the future laid out like a roadmap. Do'Toro was somewhat engaged in the conversation, asking the occasional question, making the right responses at the right moment. But those of us who knew him could have told Levy that when Do'Toro got that particular look in his eyes, his mind was working on more immediate problems. As they continued down Livernois, Do'Toro's attention kept drifting to a particular lot they'd passed. Unknown to Levy, it wasn't destiny or prophecy occupying Do'Toro's thoughts. It was a vehicle that had recently been impounded, and more specifically, how to get it back. The conversation about joining forces with JDH, about fulfilling prophecies and surpassing the DBGs in fame and power, all of that cosmic level planning was competing with a much more concrete and immediate concern, retrieving property that the authorities had decided belonged to them temporarily. When Levy finally pulled over to drop Do'Toro off, he assumed he was simply giving his potential recruit a ride close to home, or perhaps to meet with some of his F.A. mob associates. The location looked unremarkable enough, just another stop along Livernois Road. Think about what I've said, Do'Toro, Levy called out as Do'Toro got out of the car. This prophecy, this opportunity, it won't wait forever. I'll think about it, Do'Toro replied, and Levy took that as encouragement as he pulled away, no doubt already planning his next pitch about destiny and corporate synergy. But as Levy's taillights disappeared down the road, Do'Toro revealed why his attention had been divided throughout their entire conversation. From somewhere on his person, he produced a crowbar, the kind of tool that serves very specific purposes in very specific situations. What Levy hadn't realized when he dropped Do'Toro off was that they'd stopped directly outside an impound lot. The same lot where Do'Toro's vehicle had been taken, and the same lot that now stood between him and reclaiming what he considered rightfully his. Without hesitation, Do'Toro approached the fence surrounding the impound lot. The crowbar made quick work of the chain-link barrier, and within moments, he had disappeared into the maze of confiscated vehicles. For the briefest of moments, Levy wondered to himself, why didn't Do'Toro just jump over the fence? He was an A100, which meant he could have easily scaled the fence in one leap rather than using a crowbar to gain access, until he realized Do'Toro is looking to retrieve a vehicle. He wasn't busting into the impound. He was preparing a route so that he wouldn't have to bust out of the impound and damage the vehicle. That would explain why Do'Toro wasn't really engaged in the conversation they just had during their drive down Livernois. Levy noticed the distance in his young potential recruit from the moment he got into the vehicle. His mind was elsewhere. There was something about Do'Toro's posture, the way he sat with his shoulders slightly slumped, his gaze out the window as if he was looking through the world rather than at it. Levy was too focused on recruiting a prophesied legend to realize Do'Toro was caught up in his own head, weighed down by thoughts that weren't being shared. It wasn't just his half-hearted participation in the conversation, it was the absence of energy for someone who portrayed himself as enjoying civilian life. Do'Toro always had a spark in his eye when military conversation was brought up. Something had shifted, but Levy couldn't quite put his finger on it until now. Even when Levy turned off the radio and popped in the Scarface compilation, My Homies, Do'Toro wasn't all the way there. And Scarface is Do'Toro's favorite rapper. Levy had seen him rapping along to the lyrics before, deep in the groove, feeling every word like it was his own personal anthem, but not today. This time, when the bass kicked in and Scarface's voice rumbled through the speakers, Do'Toro didn't even flinch. He was barely paying attention, his mind still a million miles away, swirling in whatever internal storm had him out of sync. Levy knew the music was a lifeline for him, a way to center himself, but today it seemed like the beat was not reaching. The kid was distracted, lost in something that wasn't going to be fixed with a playlist. His mind focused not on prophecies or corporate expansion, but on the much more immediate task of automotive liberation. By the time Levy realized what had happened, Do'Toro was already deep into his impromptu repo operation. It was a perfect illustration of the difference between visionaries and operators. Levy saw the big picture, the grand design, the prophetic fulfillment. Do'Toro saw an immediate problem that needed solving, and he solved it with the tools and methods at hand. Levy chuckled to himself as he finally realized what was going on in his rearview mirror. He was, after all, dealing with a Maxwell. The Maxwells had a habit of retrieving what was theirs by whatever means, fully confident that the Nobenge Unit would be a great contribution not only to the JDH, but to the Jasper cause as well. He continued his drive up Livernois, back to the city of Callahan. Even without the full cast of prophesied beings, the JDH was still making waves throughout the province. Some minds took longer to mature than others. Victory would indeed be a feast they all would partake in. But often enough, the meat takes longer than the vegetables to cook. Being an operative with the Javhan Dominion Holdings Corporation, you learn that an opportunity is never truly missed. If it's not in alignment with the hit on this rotation, it can be hit the next time it comes around. Do'Toro would eventually join JDH. And yes, he and his FA mob would become vital assets to the company. But first, he had a fence to break through and a bounty to claim. And that's how destiny sometimes has to take a back seat to practical concerns. The prophecy could wait. The impound fees apparently could not.